Birth from the baby's perspective is an experience we've all had because we've all been born. And birth is usually viewed from the perspective of obstetrician or the parents. But the baby has an experience in birth too. And that experience may at various times be very, very stressful and painful. And it also can be an experience of overcoming difficulty. But very often babies are left with some of their experience not being fully processed, in the sense that they haven't fully moved through the experience because they got very overwhelmed. And that's what we start to get interested in our work. My sense is that birth is an important initiation into what it means to be human. And birth is a very powerful process that we've all been through in one way or another. And we do get shaped by that experience, literally, physically, and psychologically, and emotionally too. And that experience then we carries on into life as a very formative process. Now, many indigenous cultures were aware of this and worked with that to support the integration of the birth experience. In our culture, we don't do that. So a lot of that experience we get left with is something which has not been fully worked through. So birth is intended to shape us, is intended by nature to mobilize our resources to get through the whole birth process. But the other element in our culture is that birth process gets interfered with in many different ways through the medical model in which most of us were born. And that imposes elements on the birth that babies aren't prepared for. For example, the use of medications and the use of interventions and the whole environment in which birth takes place. Babies are not physiologically, psychologically, or emotionally prepared for that, but they are prepared for natural physiological birth. When we talk about trauma in relationship to birth, what we're talking about is times in the birth process where the baby may get extremely stressed, maybe under a lot of pressure, and there may be a lot of pain in the process of being born. And this is natural, and babies are able to move through these experiences and come out with a sense of having overcome them, as long as they're not overwhelmed. But there are times in the birth process where babies may be overwhelmed. The pain is so extreme they may begin to fade out, to dissociate, or they may become very sympathetically charged with the fight or flight response. Now, if they're not able to complete that process by expressing how that was for them, then they may become traumatized. But if we can truly hear the baby's story, and this is the essence of the work we do, then the baby is able to deregulate from that stress state to a relaxed state, and then experiences the that capacity, that internal capacity of having overcome difficulty and got through. Baby body language is probably the only universal language we have, and yet it is very rarely seen or understood. Babies will touch themselves in certain areas of their body where they're feeling compression left over from the birth. And as the baby moves through the maternal pelvis, there are very specific areas which get compressed, so we can tell exactly which stage in the birth the baby is telling us about. When the baby feels this compression, it's very often in the cranium or around the shoulders. It may be, if the baby had a cord around the neck, the baby may be doing something like this. the baby's telling us something very specific, and it's in the telling of it, it's feeling as if he or she is still in the experience. So it's not just about mechanical compressions or a memory in a cognitive sense. It's a body memory. The baby has experienced in an embodied way what that was like to go through the birth process. So they express this through the baby body language. Baby body language is often associated with a particular form of crying that we call memory crying. And this is different from a present moment needs cry, which most people are familiar with. A present moment needs cry is something like, I'm feeling tired, I'm hungry, I'm cold, so I need to let somebody know this is what I'm feeling so they can deal with it as a present moment need. But most people aren't familiar with the memory crying, which is when the baby is feeling in their body the experience of something left over from the birth of their prenatal experience. It's still working within them. It still has a life of its own and they feel it. And so when babies are crying, often in a way which cannot be consoled through all of the things parents try, like picking up the baby, rocking the baby, feeding the baby, it's very often a memory cry. So parents bring their babies for therapy for a number of reasons, but the main one is that the baby is very fractious. That means the baby is unable to settle, and there's often inconsolable crying. And so the parents have tried everything and the baby is still crying. And it can be a really heartrending, painful cry that the parents know needs something that this baby's not getting. And that's often when they come to us. It's like when nothing else works. Parents are very often at the end of what they can cope with in terms of a baby that's so distressed so much of the time. And with that distress, the parents often get very distressed. They lose confidence in their parenting. They don't get enough sleep. Then they may get into arguments with each other because they are all stressed. So the whole family is caught in this cycle of distress. And actually working with the baby to help the baby to resolve whatever's there can help the whole family move into a whole completely different way of being with each other, which is much more open, relaxed and resourced. We run our baby therapy trainings in a number of different countries, and they're aimed at people who are already working with babies in some form or other. That may be midwives, doulas, pediatricians, pediatric nurses, osteopaths, craniosacral therapists, psychotherapists too. So we work with people from a number of different disciplines. One of the interesting things is that these are people that are very experienced with working with babies. And the thing I hear most of all is when they become aware of the baby body language, they say, wow, how come I never saw that before? It's so obvious. And yet in all my years of working with babies, I never saw that. So there's this profound sense of seeing something which has never been seen before.